lied to us about uniting the party. I'm still a Labour Party member, and you've expelled and witch hunted in the most vicious way I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I've been a member of the Labour Party for a long, long time. You have absolutely said you had 10 pledges, you were going to carry on the Corbyn legacy, and ever since you've done nothing but distance yourself from the ideas which...
£550 question. How Rachel Reeves is making Britain poorer. Right. Before we dive into this absolute shambles, smash that subscribe button if you want the unvarnished truth about what's happening to your money under this government. Trust me, you'll need UK Connors in your corner for what's coming next. Picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table, calculator in hand, wondering why everything feels tighter despite what the politicians promised. Well, here's your answer, and it's not pretty. Rachel Reeves, our esteemed Chancellor, isn't just failing to deliver prosperity, she's actively making British families poorer. £550 poorer, to be precise, every single year. This isn't some back-of-the-envelope calculation from a disgruntled opposition MP. This is hard data from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, an organization that spent decades fighting poverty and knows a financial disaster when it sees one. Their latest research has dropped a bombshell that should have every household in Britain asking serious questions about where this government is taking us. Between September 2024 and September 2029, the average British family's disposable income will shrink by £550 annually. Let that sink in for a moment. While Reeves stands at the dispatch box talking about growth and prosperity, real families will have less money in their pockets. Not more. Less. It's the kind of economic sleight of hand that would make even the most cynical politician blush. But here's where it gets truly staggering. This isn't just another rough patch in Britain's economic journey. According to the Foundation's analysis, this 5-year decline would represent the worst performance in living standards since detailed parliamentary record began in 1961. Think about that timeline. We're talking about a period that includes the oil crises of the 1970s, the recession of the early 1990s, and the 2008 financial crash. Yet somehow, Rachel Reeves is presiding over something worse. The Foundation's chief economist, Chris Belfield, didn't mince words when he delivered this verdict. Families, he said, need to see their living standards improve, and they'll vote accordingly. They'll support governments that deliver prosperity and punish those that don't. It's democracy in its purest form. The ballot box is the ultimate accountability mechanism. Belfield reminded us that the previous Labour government understood this fundamental truth. During their first term, they lifted 300,000 children out of poverty while raising living standards across the board. The result? 2 more terms in office. Success breeds success, but failure breeds Rachel Reeves. Now, you might be thinking this is all theoretical economic modeling, divorced from real-world impact. But the Foundation's projections are based on concrete data from the Office for National Statistics and the Bank of England. They've crunched the numbers on interest rates, wages, and inflation trends, and the picture they paint is deeply troubling. The impact won't be felt equally across society, because economic pain never is. The Foundation's analysis reveals that families in the lowest third of income distribution will bear the heaviest burden. Between 2019 and 2029, these households will see their disposable income fall by £1,110 annually, a devastating 6.2% decline. These aren't the families with financial cushions to absorb such shocks. These are the households already making impossible choices between heating and eating, between school uniforms and groceries. And if you think single parents have had it tough already, brace yourself. The data shows they'll experience the largest decline in living standards, followed closely by couples with children and single adults of working age without children. Meanwhile, working-age households overall will be roughly £900 worse off per year compared to retired households, who will face a £170 annual reduction. Even in decline, the government's managed to create inequality. This brings us to a fundamental question about political priorities and economic competence. The Foundation notes that the economy has been struggling since the banking crisis of 2009. Fair enough, that was indeed a watershed moment that reshaped Britain's economic landscape. But what's inexcusable is the trajectory we're on now. When families are getting poorer under your watch, when living standards are declining faster than they have in over 60 years, that's not an inherited problem. That's a policy choice. Rachel Reeves came into office with grand promises about growth and prosperity. She spoke of a new dawn for British economics, of unleashing the country's potential. Instead, she's delivered the opposite. The Foundation's research suggests we're heading into the most austere period for family finances in living memory, and that's not hyperbole, that's mathematics. But here's what makes this particularly galling. It doesn't have to be this way. The think tank made it crystal clear that families being worse off in a decade isn't inevitable. The government has acknowledged the severity of the problem by pledging to raise living standards. They know what needs to be done. The question is whether they have the political will to do it. The Foundation outlined specific measures that could reverse this trend, investing properly in social security rather than cutting it to the bone, intervening meaningfully in crucial sectors like housing and energy where market failures are crushing household budgets, establishing what they call a minimum floor in universal credit, a baseline below which no family's income should fall, scrapping the cruel two-child benefit cap that pushes larger families into poverty, removing the benefit cap that can cause payments to simply stop when families need them most. These aren't radical socialist policies dreamed up in some university common room. They are practical, targeted interventions designed to stop British families from getting poorer. The fact that they need to be proposed at all tells you everything about the current government's priorities. What's particularly damning about this research is its timing. We're not talking about some distant theoretical future. These projections run through 2029, covering this entire parliamentary term. Rachel Reeves and her colleagues will own every pound of this decline. When families across Britain find themselves £550 worse off, when parents struggle even more to provide for their children, when working people discover that work no longer pays enough to live decently, the responsibility will lie squarely with the decisions being made right now. The Foundation's warning should be a wake-up call, but will it be? The previous Labour government proved that living standards can be improved, that poverty can be reduced, that economic policy can work for ordinary families. The blueprint exists. The tools are available. What seems to be missing is a commitment to use them. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet or statistics in a think tank report. This is about real families facing real hardship because of political choices made in Westminster. It's about children growing up in poverty not because Britain lacks resources, but because those resources aren't being used effectively. It's about working people discovering that their wages buy less each year while politicians talk about economic recovery. The Joseph Rowntree Foundation has thrown down the gauntlet. They provided the data, outlined the solutions, and made the political stakes crystal clear. Families will hold this government accountable for their living standards. The question now is whether Rachel Reeves and her colleagues will respond with the urgency this crisis demands, or whether they'll continue down a path that makes Britain poorer with each passing year. The choice is theirs, but the consequences